Many people say Thais areใจเย็น, which means literally translated cool-hearted or actually calm. After having lived here for more than 16 years, I claim that this is a myth and that Thai people are not moreใจเย็นthan people from other countries. In this video I'll tell you why. Hi guys, how are you doing? If you are new to this channel, I'm George Thai and you're on My Thai 24. Many people who live in Thailand or have been visiting Thailand for many times know the Thai termใจเย็น, which literally translated means cool heart, which stands for being calm, patient and composure, or in other words just being able to keep cool. Many people believe that this is an important part of Thai culture and a typical Thai character trait, and oftentimes even think that most Thai people tend to beใจเย็น. However, I claim that Thai people are not particularly moreใจเย็นthan people from other countries. First, I would like to emphasize that this is my personal opinion based on my long-term experience, my observations, my readings and my reflections about Thailand and Thai people. Here I also would like to point out that I'm able to speak, read and write Thai fluently and thus have an access to what Thai people speak all the time in their lives, which is crucial to assess them and their behavior. Other people might disagree and think differently based on their experience, which is totally fine with me and actually interesting. It would be great if you share your experience and observations and thus we can learn from each other. Okay, let's jump right into it. As said,ใจเย็น means being calm, patient and composure. It is a character trait which is also important in Buddhism. This certainly is a reason whyใจเย็นis an idealistic quality which people in the Buddhist country Thailand try to strive for. Moreover, you find the quality of beingใจเย็นin Thai books about Thai culture and how Thai people should idealistically be and behave, which for sure is also taught at schools. For example, in this text about Thai culture you find this. คนไทยรักสงบใจเย็นอ่อนน้อมคนไทยไม่ชอบแสดงออกซึ่งความโกรธและความรุนแรงหลีกเลี่ยงการใช้อารมณ์และการทะเลาะวิวาทในที่ชุมชนคนไทยมีบุคลิกภาพใจเย็น Translated, this means Thai people love being peaceful, ใจเย็น calm, and being submissive or cautious. Thai people do not like showing emotions of anger and violence. They avoid using emotions and arguing in the community or in public. Thai people have a personality of ใจเย็น. So you see, it's kind of taught to them, and it's also actually the quality of ใจเย็นactually is more or less imposed on them from above by religion and education. It is how Thai people idealistically should be, something which is admirable and people should strive for, and to a certain extent is also socially expected or hoped for, but it is not necessarily like most Thai people are in real. Moreover, to a certain extent it is also even more emphasized by how Thai people and culture are presented to the world by important and mighty organizations like the TAT. They want to create a certain image of Thai people and a certain kind of Thainess, including the quality of ใจเย็น, which makes them look more positive, exotic, perhaps even a bit mystical and unfathomable, and thus more interesting and attractive. Thus, it is a kind of a part of a marketing strategy of these organizations of how Thailand is presented to the world in order to attract as many tourists as possible. Now let's come back to my claim that Thai people beingใจเย็นis a myth and why I have drawn this conclusion. First of all, to label the people of a whole nation with one quality of or character trait, namely ใจเย็นor being calm, is a sweeping generalization which should be avoided when coping with people of other countries anyway. As I also clearly state in my video about the top 7 mindset qualities to enjoy life in Thailand long term. I will leave a link in the description to this video. Nonetheless, there could be certain tendencies of certain character traits of people which are more common in one country than other countries. For example, people might say that in Thailand most people tend to beใจเย็น, which however I do not agree with either. There are several reasons for this, and actually most Thai people agree with me on this too. If you ask Thai people in Thai if Thais areใจเย็น, most of them do say no. Many even say that many Thai people areใจร้อน, hot-hearted, which means in English like hot-tempered, short-tempered, impatient, or hot-headed. In my opinion, it depends very much on the situation if an average Thai person is or seems to beใจเย็น, and also depends with who he or she is coping with. Many Thai people tend to be moreใจเย็นif they are in public or together with people they do not know well, and when faced with people who rank higher on the social hierarchy and who they are dependent on. For example, their boss, teachers, professors, government officers, doctors, and often, but not always, customers, and richer and more wealthy people. However, if they are together with people they know well, many of them are much lessใจเย็น. This is also true if they cope with people who have a lower rank on the social hierarchy or people who are dependent on them. For example, someone's employees, students, children, citizens at government offices, and also poorer people and people of lower class. Moreover, I'd say it depends also on the topic, how and how longใจเย็นan average Thai person can be. With regard of some safety issues, quite a few Thais are quiteใจเย็น. For example, when they tolerate dangerous and extremely risky driving behavior of other people in traffic, for example, wrong-way drivers. But if you criticize them directly and try to prove them wrong with something, and thus they feel that they lose face, quite a few Thai people do not stay thatใจเย็นfor a long time. Besides that, another important point is that being calm and patient in public or with a boss or customer or someone you do not know does not necessarily mean that the true personality isใจเย็น. Oftentimes, beingใจเย็นin such situation is like wearing a mask, which hides the true personality behind it. Quite a lot of people who are actually hot-headed and hot-tempered still can stayใจเย็นin certain situations. Some of them can do this really well, but if a certain limit is crossed, the true colors are disclosed. This can be really quite explosive at times. More explosive and uncontrolled than many people from the West, from Western countries are used to. By the way, a lot of foreigners living in Thailand or having a Thai spouse in their country compare the Thai people they know with a volcano. They stay calm for quite a long time and you never know how long, and if they emotionally explode, it is like a volcanic eruption, very hot, dangerous, and completely out of control. With regard of my experience and observations of Thai people beingใจเย็น, actually it is particularly the hundreds or even thousands of little things which I have encountered in everyday life when coping with Thai people during my long-term stay in Thailand, which led me think that many of them are notใจเย็นat all. For example, people being impatient and like to take shortcuts in order to finish something up faster for them. For example, you see quite a lot of people cutting lines when queuing up for buses or in shops. Many people just like not to wait in a queue, which clearly shows impatience and not beingใจเย็น, in my opinion. Another thing is also that a lot of Thai people can get really upset, even aggressive, because of little things like using the horn of your car for a little bit too long, or even just because of wrong facial expressions or looks. Many of these little things particularly get obvious if you understand the language well and thus understand all the details they are talking about. Particularly with people you know well and they know you well, it is even more obvious that they are not moreใจเย็นthan people from other countries. However, let's talk about the most obvious ones in order to make it easy to understand and clearer for everybody. One of the most obvious ones is traffic and road rage. If you drive around in Bangkok or also upcountry, you regularly see people driving aggressively, fast and cutting in dangerously. Aggressive tailgating and thus endangering lives of other people is also pretty common. Moreover, not seldomly, small things like the already mentioned using your horn on someone can lead to aggressive reactions of the counterpart and even fights. It is that extreme that many people even have weapons in their car, for example baseball and wooden bats, knives, machetes or even guns, just in case they have to cope with some other road user. All this speaks volumes of how many people in this country actually are, and also how many people think their fellow countrymen are. As a matter of fact, not Thai yen at all, not calm, patient and composure, but actually much more hot-headed. Moreover, another really obvious one is that fights in discotheques and pubs are pretty common, or actually used to be pretty common before COVID, as they are closed now. In those days they were still open. Also not a sign of being Thai yen at all. Furthermore, mass brawls at concerts are common too, particularly upcountry. They are that common that many Thai people warn you and recommend you better not to go to a rock concert upcountry. Besides that, mass brawls among students from rival colleges or schools are also quite common in Thailand. They just beat up students from other colleges or schools for the sole reason from being from that other institution. In this kind of mass brawls, often weapons like machetes, knives and guns are used too. Moreover, domestic violence is common in Thailand too, for sure not less common than in many other countries. Men beat their girlfriends or wives, and women are violent against their boyfriend and husbands. I did not read this just on the news. I've also heard about this very often from people I know, and I've seen this also by myself. Furthermore, parents beating their children is unfortunately still pretty common in Thailand too, and even teachers using violence against students and even small kids. Like for example at Sarasat school in Bangkok, where an educator used violence against a little kid at nursery, pushing him and putting a plastic bag over his head. And apparently this happened at that school regularly. It was no exception. And if you ask a Thai person if they ever were beaten by a teacher, most of them will tell you yes, completely different to the West. So there's a lot of violence and aggressiveness going on in Thailand, for sure not less than in many Western countries, but actually with regard of domestic violence and teachers beating students, even significantly more than in most countries in the West. Certainly, a society where violence is common cannot be labeled as Thai yen or as more Thai yen than people from other countries. One reason why Thai people might seem to be Thai yen for some foreigners is the language barrier. Many Thai people avoid to talk a lot in another language, particularly if they don't speak it well, and thus tend to be quieter, which looks like Thai yen for the foreigner. However, if you are able to speak Thai well and communicate with them in their mother tongue, things change completely, and actually you really get to know them and know how they really are. So, due to the mentioned reasons, I conclude that you cannot say that most Thai people tend to be Thai yen, and you also cannot say that they are more Thai yen than people from other countries. Thai people are just human beings like everybody else. They are people with all kind of different behaviors and character traits, like in any other country too. Some of them are Thai yen and some others are not that much. So these were my thoughts and my opinion on if Thai people are more Thai yen than people from other countries or not. It would be great if you share your thoughts about this topic too. What are your experiences? Do you think that there is a tendency of Thai people being Thai yen or not? Or actually being more Thai yen than people from other countries? Please let us know in the comment section. It would be great if we get a lot of interactions on this topic and can learn from each other. If you have any questions or would like to add anything, please do this in the comment section too. If this video was valuable for you, please hit the like button. I will have many more interesting videos about Thailand coming up soon, so please subscribe to my channel and make sure you don't miss them. Thank you very much for watching, and I catch you on the next one. Bye!